Hi guys, it's Blackie for Shaman's Forge Bushcraft. Okay, next in the Percussion Revolver series, the 1861 Navy, we're about to go through the breakdown of it. And the first one we talked about it, now we're going to actually do it. Now the 61 Navy, as I pointed out, is the upgrade of the 51, which had the octagonal barrel. This one has the very sculpted, smooth barrel to it. And now we're going to go by piece. On this one, we're going to deal with the barrel. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tap out this wedge. And to do that, you're going to take something non-marring and you're going to hit it on that wedge and push that wedge out. Now if it's tight and you can't seem to get it out, I recommend you take a clothespin, one of them wooden clothespins, and take it in half and use that wooden wedge to tap it out. Okay, now let me get the camera adjusted and we're going to show you step by step. Stay with me. Right now I have pulled the wedge. I'm now going to put the gun onto half cock so the cylinder freely rotates. I'm going to turn it so that the rammer comes down between two cylinders like that, and then I'm going to squeeze. And now you see it comes off. Now we have the cylinder, the receiver, and the barrel. Now the next screw we're going to take out on the barrel is going to be this little screw right here. It's going to be tight. You're going to bear straight down, hold a lot of pressure on it, and gently turn until it breaks loose. Sometimes these things are almost glued in from the factory. You may want to add a little bit of penetrating oil, but make sure you have an absolutely good fitting screwdriver. Do not mar these up because these little bitty screws are not very strong. Okay, I've taken that screw out and I'm going to slide out the rammer and lift off. Taking the little screw and putting it back into my component so I do not lose it. Okay, now what we've got is the actual ramming assembly, the actual rammer, and the barrel. Now what we want to look for is any burrs in this slot where the rammer rides. And this one appears to be relatively smooth and slick. Now this edge right here is a little sharp, so I want to smooth that out. And to do that, I'm going to use a pair of files. Now you can get these at hobby supply places, stuff like that. And I want one that's curved, not necessarily round, but curved. Give me a minute, I'll find the correct one. There's one I want. It's kind of like a laurel leaf. This edge right here on the bottom is very sharp on this one. So I'm going to pull it and get rid of that wire edge. Doing just like this. Real soft and gentle. Just like that. Eliminate that wire edge to cut me. Now, where the actual alignment pins, you can see them there and there. Those I'm going to chamfer a little bit, and for that I'm going to use a common drill bit. I'm going to set it up there and with finger pressure only, just going to give a little turn. For the next one, give a little turn. Now, as you can see, what that's done is it's just broke the wire edge on it. I want it to slide into the frame without being loose, of course, but I want it to do like that, pop in, but not bite so hard that I have to pry it off every time. See, that's working fine. Now, of course, this will be given a thorough cleaning. You already know how to do that. There's a screw right here that's supposed to retain the wedge. It didn't, so I better keep that in mind for the future. Make sure that screw is good and tight so it doesn't disappear. And looking at my muzzle, making sure my muzzle is crowned well. Make sure there's no sharp edge right here at the muzzle where the bullet comes out. If it is, take a big drill bit, this one's a little too small, and gently hand turn it to break that edge. Now you don't want to really cut that. You're just getting rid of any wire edge to make it more uniform. This will increase accuracy. Okay, this notch right here where the loading lever locks into. I'm going to take my laurel leaf file, putting it down, beveling it, and I'm just going to hit that a couple times, taking away any wire burr, and this one's got a pretty good wire burr on it. There. Okay, Now the loading lever itself. These are all smooth. These edges are fine. However, something I found a lot is this little latch that goes up and down. These back edges are sharp as a razor. So I'm going to put it down here on the edge, and I'm going to stone it just a little bit. Not trying to take off any real metal, just trying to round that a little bit so it is not so razor sharp. I do not want it cutting me whenever I go to grab it, especially if my hand's a little slick from grease or sweat or something and my finger slips and suddenly I rip up a hunk of skin. I have seen these little things be so sharp they'd slice paper. Now just stone them a little bit, get rid of the sharp edges. Don't worry about the notch. Now the actual latch right here that goes up and down, all I'm going to do is make sure that there are no burrs on that. This one is pretty clean. Go between it because you see it's split. There's a little pin right there and it's going around that pin. I want to make sure that is burr free, so I'm just going to take and run my little chamfer in there and get rid of any burr. And that will make that work much more smoothly. Now, that is basically the barrel. Let me move the camera. I'll be right back with you. Okay. Now, the notch where the wedge goes through. You want to see if there's any burrs on the inside. And use your file for that and look inside. You may need to take and wrap some sandpaper around a dowel or something and go in there and turn it to keep it smooth. The burrs and all will hang up on the arbor when you're sliding it in and out, make it difficult to remove the barrel. We want a snug fit, but we do not want it where, having to pull it apart where these things are binding, especially once it gets hot from repeated shooting and it swells up and they kind of lock into position. I had an 1860 years ago that I would have to just every time wedge the barrel off of, and eventually I bent my rammer. So therefore, let's make it a little smoother than that. Now, the forcing cone right here at the back, this should be smooth. Take your finger and feel around it. If it is not, again, take a drill bit that's big enough or one of the little round cones like goes onto a Dremel tool or something. Just sit it in there and finger turn it 2 or 3 laps. Do not try to remove a lot of metal. Just remove that wire edge. This needs to be sort of like a pocket, so that as the ball is leaving the cylinder, it lands and then goes down the barrel. If it hits a sharp edge, it tears and deforms the ball as it's trying to be forced into the barrel. So it's been my experience that this forcing cone should be a cone going in rather than a sharp 90-degree edge. So make sure there's a little bit of a bevel right there to give the bullet a chance to kind of get going down it. Okay, that's the basics of the barrel. Of course, thorough cleaning. Now, when it comes to sighting in, I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to notch the sight differently when we get to that part. But this is the basic of what to do to the barrel. Any sharp edge, remove it. Now, any place I have, a little cold bluing will smooth it out. Also, this plate right here, where the barrel goes onto the frame. It should lock on, and you should be able to look up at a strong light and see just the tiniest little gap of light through it, so that you've got the peg sticking up in like a little bitty thin thousandths or so of an inch between it. This will allow the frame to swell and etc. under heat, repeated firing, and not. If you don't see that, it's not a bad thing, but it can make it where as the barrel gets hot, it wants to push up there because it kind of pushes. So if it's straight in doing, it's fine. Okay? There's supposed to be a real fine little gap. The other thing is these pins, which we will get to on the frame. I'll tell you about them now. Wiggle them, make sure they're solidly in there. If not, now's the time to get them out and put some JB weld and lock them in place. These are pressed in from the factory. If you have beveled it, like I told you to do with your Dremel, your drill bit earlier, and make sure that the bottom of those holes is clean and free of debris. Quite often when these guns show up initially from the factory, there's almost like a rust-like debris in the bottom of the screw holes. This, I think, is part of the plating that doesn't get cleaned out. So it's a good idea to take a Q-tip or a pipe cleaner and clean out the bottom of any hole, any screw thread. Same thing with this screw on the side. Break it loose, take it out, clean it, oil it, put it back in. Okay? Alright guys, that's it for the barrel. Stay with me. In the next video, we'll go to the next part. I'm Blackie for Shaman's Forge Bushcraft, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.